Previously on Fantastic Contraption.
Ultimately, the two-piece design has never come to fruition, and this is one holy grail that continues to evade discovery. I stated those words about the free level Awash mere weeks ago, and I wasn't sure if anyone would ever be able to solve the level with just two pieces. But out of nowhere, ha! You guys think I'm gonna give you the instant gratification of showing you the solve right off the bat? You should know better. First, there's a few things we have to talk about, starting with Mark XB. Mark XB is a Canadian that fell in love with FC first through its sequel, Fantastic Contraption 2. Within Fantastic Contraption 2, Mark XB was a serious force and strong contender for the Brown Crown that I once hosted for FC2. Unfortunately, the third-party company that hosted the game shut FC2 down many years ago, forcing players like Mark to leave the dark side and join the rest of us on the original, where Colin and Sarah still graciously let us play in their virtual backyard. While Mark has never quite fully committed himself to the original game the way that he had done so on the sequel, he's still able to generate some pretty clever contraptions, and that cleverness would prove to come in handy later in this story. Of course, Mark wasn't the only important player in FC's latest discovery. This is Chicken Bob. Hailing from down under, Chicken Bob has proven to be one of the most impressive contraptioneers to truly emerge from the last few years. While he had played over a decade ago shortly after FC's initial release, his impact and influence has grown tremendously in recent years. Unfortunately, he was a bit late to truly make his mark in any of my Brown Crown competitions, only ever competing in Brown Crown 10, which was a bit before his recent ascension. But as these designs show, Chicken Bob's ability is undeniable, and it may not be immediately recognizable from these designs, but Chicken Bob has also demonstrated immense patience and a keen eye for detail, put on display with his ability to tweak this 11-piece design to victory, the current least piece record on the official level Coalition. Clearly, Chicken Bob had the necessary skills to be instrumental in this story. Okay, sure, Mark and Chicken Bob are great players, but there have been dozens, possibly hundreds, or even thousands of players to try their hand at solving Awash in just two pieces. What makes things different this time around? Well, the last piece of the puzzle left to discuss is brought to us by Comey. In my Brown Crown history video, I briefly referenced an FC simulator that Pavel had created. Building on that idea, Comey had programmed some significant upgrades to a simulator of her own, and she continues to do so. The key feature worth discussing is this preview button, enabling players to see the trajectory of a goal piece in real time, while actively tweaking the design. For designs where micro adjustments are critical, a technique that has half-jokingly become known as wiggle tech has emerged. By making minuscule changes to various parts of the design, the effect can be immediately perceived through Komi's preview feature. This enables players to gain insight much more quickly, allowing them to adapt and learn where to focus their attention to reach their goals. I can't overstate how helpful this feature is, and how much Komi has single-handedly elevated the overall experience of crafting and tweaking contraptions in our favorite game. With all of that, the stage was set. Like I said, hundreds of players have attempted this, starting all the way back in 2008, as shown by this post from IfX on the old forums. In 2017, Maxim compiled many of the closer attempts, but none quite had the juice to manage the squeeze. However, after the release of my Holy Grails video, the FC community was immediately inspired to revisit old two-piece attempts at solving a wash, starting with Clover Drop and Keza Atkin. Mark XB then brought up the idea of using a ball and stick combo instead of the two-stick method. The ball creates a more solid fulcrum, but limits some of the flexibility for where that fulcrum takes place in 2D space, as the ball is forced to rest on the ground, while the upper joint of a stick could theoretically go anywhere inside the build area. Chicken Bob also began tinkering with the level, but nobody seemed to be making any progress that was more significant than any other attempt in the past 17 years. Mark XB continued to try to prove the level would be possible with a wheel and stick, playing around with this three-piece design. Regular Magical Unicorn was the first to prove it would be possible, and Mark XB managed a three-piece solve himself. But still, the two-piece solution remained out of reach, with no new ideas that would get the group over the hump. That was until Mark had the most profound idea in this entire story. By setting the stick upright with the goal piece on top, Mark managed to drop the combination onto the wheel in a way that achieved more power than any previous two-piece attempt. This keen insight overcame the most difficult part of crafting a two-piece design, getting all the pieces in place at the perfect position at the perfect point in time when the large orange ball crashes onto the catapult. The way the ball rolls down the stick also eliminates some of the backspin that is created in more traditional attempts, which would theoretically reduce the amount of momentum that is normally lost when the goal piece lands. With this new idea, there was suddenly a mad dash of attempts. With some XML tweaking, Keza Atkin was the first to demonstrate getting over the fourth to last orange ball, the biggest obstacle to a viable solution. Chicken Bob then achieved the same thing. Mark XB was the first to demonstrate the goal piece finally rolling over all of the last four orange balls, but sadly it didn't quite make it all the way up the hill. And in a matter of minutes, players went from thinking it would never happen to being convinced this two-piece solution was inevitable. And then, all of a sudden, Mark XB and Chicken Bob had done it. What was arguably the most sought-after accomplishment in Fantastic Contraption history had finally been achieved. This sent the community into a frenzy. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. For so long, a wash two-piece was even less than a lofty idea, it was just a meme. So many had been convinced it was impossible, but out of nowhere, Mark XB made it possible, and Chicken Bob made it a reality. It's hard to describe how monumental of an achievement this is. I don't think many people outside of our niche Fantastic Contraption community could really get it, let alone care. But for our small corner of the internet, history was made once again. And the crazy thing is, they didn't stop there. This two-piece design used a wheel. Most FCers always envisioned the Holy Grail as a two-stick design, and it turns out that with the same falling stick method that Mark XB had originally proposed, the two-stick design was real, also accomplished by Mark and Chicken Bob. So is this finally the end? Well, I'd wager against that idea. With ongoing attempts at a four-piece Impossible design and a two-piece U-turn design, there's no telling what's next for Fantastic Contraption. But what I do know is that the tenacity and determination of FC fanatics is far beyond what anyone would expect, and that surely even this is not the end of our fun online physics puzzle game.